Joining us right now, the host of Greenlight Podcast, two-time Super Bowl champion, to talk about everything that we just saw this weekend and getting ready for Super Wildcard Weekend is the Rich Eisen Show Monday regular, Chris Long. How you doing, Chris?
What's up, Rich? How are you?
I am well. Let's just jump right into it. If you want the sweater that I'm wearing, I'm going to hold on to this one, okay? But that's not an indication that this is my last show.
Yeah. No, you're going to be here.
Okay, so what is your I guess interpretation of Rodgers telling Jameson Williams, I'm going to hold on to this one? What do you got for me on that?
Well, I think obviously there was immediate speculation. I saw it in real time. Like, I think, the mics picked things up so well. In fact, I was kind of straining to listen as he was, giving hugs and talking to people on the field after the game. And I kind of figured we might hear something, and we did. And I thought buried in this whole story is the confidence of Jameson Williams going to get Rodgers' jersey.
Hey, he's shooting his shot.
Awesome.
He's shooting his shot.
Yeah, you got to shoot your shot. Rodgers, understandably, if it's the last game, wants to keep that jersey. And I don't think anybody would be surprised, if it was his last game. Listen, I still think he's a great player. And, I think there's going to be any number of teams that are going to look at what he brings to the table and think, hey, that's the difference between where we're sitting in a Super Bowl. Like, say, Rich, the Jets wanted to bring Aaron Rodgers in. Who says no? You say no?
Oh, I do not say no to that. Even though I still wear the scars of the Favre administration there, but this is a different situation, different quarterback, different everything.
Well, the Brett Favre-led Jets beat my Rams 44-10. I think I was on the field for that one.
Okay.
It was crazy. But yeah, no, Aaron Rodgers would make somebody better next year. It just has not worked as of late in Green Bay. It just feels like they have a lot of talent, year to year. I think this year there were some questions about, some of the offensive weapons they have. But you talk about, at the end of the season, Aaron Jones, Christian Watson, Romeo Doubs, Robert Tonyan, you get Bakhtiari back. I'm not going to make a bunch of excuses for this offense. And ultimately that falls on Aaron Rodgers' shoulder. It falls on Matt LaFleur's shoulders. And, the fumble hurt last night, and plus territory, you miss a field goal, which, obviously at that point, it was a very long field goal. And then seeing Matt asking somebody on the sideline, do you want me to punt it? So I don't know if they were thinking about punting that ball, but you could point to any number of things in that game last night. But ultimately the theme is, you lose to San Francisco 49ers at home in a cold weather game, and Jimmy Garoppolo is the other quarterback. And then, in a must-win game, you lose to Jared Goff. And I'm not trying to demean those two quarterbacks, but if you're Aaron Rodgers, you have to beat those guys. And so I don't think there's much more we have to see in Green Bay, honestly. And I think, Aaron making it known on some level after the game, I'm not saying he knew the mic would pick it up, but it's about time to start posturing for maybe I don't want to be here. That's every year, right? And it started last week before the Week 18 game. Well, I'm not sure what the future holds and that sort of thing. I think this year it's not a bluff, and he can't retire. $59 million, it's hard to walk away from, or whatever it is. And he doesn't have a no trade clause, so I think he's going to have more control over his situation this offseason.
Well, I'm not a capologist, Chris, nor are you, but I think I have it written down here. Trading him would cost the Packers $1 gajillion. That's what I wrote down, the word gajillion. So the idea, though, is, and I know he's all about mindfulness and living in the present, but that was pretty damn mindful in living in the present about, I'm going to hold on to this one, meaning it's in his head, and it was in his head going into the game despite the 4-game win streak. That it's a possibility that he would not want to come back, because who doesn't want to come back to play a game that he clearly loves for $60 million in a spot that adores him too. So this thing doesn't compute unless he does.
I bet you there's been think about it, for years you resent where you play on some level, whether it was his treatment earlier in his career, like with everything with Favre in the beginning, or whether it's kind of your perceived lack of investment in weapons that would help him win, depending on where you land on that. And then by the end of it, it's just this kind of like, I'm not saying the relationship is toxic necessarily, but I think you build up these calluses over years where you just kind of got your mind made up that the grass would be greener somewhere else on some level. And I do believe that part of him probably wants to see what that's about. I don't know. It feels like they've had every opportunity to take the next step over the last couple of years, and they haven't done it. And I don't know. You know, if you're the Packers, do you hit the reset button while that stock's really high? Because he can still throw the football, man. He's still a hell of a football player. And I think it'd be interesting, too. I think it'd be good TV. You know, Aaron in New York or something like that. I mean,
Wow.
I hate to keep placing him in a Jets uniform, but it's just something that's popped in my head this morning.
There's Vegas, too, I mean, which is a spot a lot of people think Brady would have a landing spot for. Miami might be in the business of a quarterback. Yeah. I mean, the quarterback carousel, as it begins to spin with teams now being eliminated, is going to be really fascinating between now and new league year time. Chris Long, two-time Super Bowl champ, here on the Rich Eisen Show. Staying in the here and now, what was the Los Angeles Chargers and Brandon Staley's strategy yesterday, do you think?
Well, I think keeping their players sharp going into the postseason, which I don't, you know, I know it's so easy to hindsight this thing and say, you know, and I've questioned a lot of stuff Brandon Staley's done. It's so easy to say, oh, well, look what you did. You know, you got these guys hurt. You know, I saw people get tackled like Mike Williams got tackled 100 times on Sunday. I know that you've got an injury history. I know that Bosa, that injury is, I don't know, people are speculating he's not hurt, but I've heard he's hurt. Kenneth Walker, I think, got to leave. The bottom line is, like, Cowboys kept people in longer than you might have preferred. The Eagles had a lot of players in that game late, and I know that thing, you know, got a little tighter than you wanted it to. There's some statistic, and I will blame my producer if this is wrong, but you know, over the course of the last bunch of games that a team had a choice where they rest their starters going into the playoffs, most of the time that does not go very well for that team. And I've been on teams where we had a bye. I've seen teams that have had buys, especially offensively, come out sluggish and without, you know, great energy or not executing because it's been 2 weeks since they took snaps. And I think it's easy to hindsight this thing, but I'm not going to get on a soapbox this morning about football players playing football. I think there's an art to it, and I think you have to decide at what point in the game do you take those guys out.
Right.
But I have no problem with playing guys so that they get reps and stay sharp. The Chargers just got good. Like, that's another thing. They're just starting to play like a good football team. It's not like a situation where you've had this well-oiled machine all season long. Like, you need the work. You need some of the work. Now, the question becomes, like, how much of the work do you need? And at what point have you passed that point of diminishing return where it's time to get guys the hell out of the ballgame? So it's easy to hindsight it. I'm not going to do it. The thing that sucks for them is they have a short week, and predictably AFC South is going to play on Saturday, I think in the 8:15 slot. But that's
yes.
Right, and that's going to be a good football game. But they got to travel across the country, man, with some of these injuries they've had, and it's tough.
Yeah, I mean, by the way, the first AFC South team champion that plays on a Sunday of Wild Card Weekend, or now even a Monday, that'll be a monumental achievement. I agree with you. And it was kind of a surprise that it was the late window. Normally, that's that you could book that for the first window of Wild Card Weekend, AFC South champ versus fill in the blank. You know, but that said, too late for me to second guess, to say I'm not second guessing. I did earlier on in the program, but by half in a way of what you just said. Look, when the Chargers put 14 up on the board, you got the juices flowing. Get them out of there. I mean, certainly if you're also the head coach, and again, if anybody knows how difficult it is to be a head coach in the league, I've been around. I'm loath to criticize, but if you're also a coach who doesn't play anybody in the preseason, at all. Like, you're willing to come out of the gate.
That's the part.
You know,
that's
like,
the part for me.
What are we doing?
Yeah.
Like,
you got to get guys out of there once you get them to work. You know, and there's some people that tell you, like, don't play guys at all and that sort of thing. I don't prescribe to that. But I think the context of how you've been playing, what you need or what you don't need to happen, and obviously they didn't need anything to happen at that point, then it just becomes about execution. But once you have that execution and the juices are flowing, it's time to get guys out of the game. But as far as playing guys, period, in situations like this, I've always been a fan, and I said it last week, of playing guys, you know, when you can. That doesn't mean they got to play 60 minutes or 60 snaps, but you got to play guys when you can, in my opinion. And I think the numbers back that up.
Chris Long here on the Rich Eisen Show. We were giving Michael Irvin grief on our program yesterday because I might have baited him into saying it, but he took the cheese, saying we want Tom. That's what he said for the Cowboys. He figured that the Eagles were going to win anyway. That might have been his way of doubling down. We want Tom. I told him it kind of had that we want Alabama feel in college football, and his response was, "Well, Tom's not Alabama right now."
I'm confused. I thought he was saying he wants Tom next year.
Nah, Dee.
Be careful wanting Tom. This is not a matchup that I love for the Cowboys, and I just, you know, the line I thought was going to be like 4.5. It's like 3. I would bet the Bucks. I just, and I said this before yesterday, which now I'm kind of like, well, everybody's going to be on the Bucks now, but I just feel like the Cowboys are not to be trusted. I just don't trust them. I feel like this is the type of spot where all the pressure's on the Cowboys, especially after Dak plays one of the worst games of his career, you know, in the context of the situation. The defense hasn't been as good. They've lost to or been close to losing to some really average quarterbacks this season. You know, they lost to Sam Howell yesterday. It's just the vibes are not good, and I don't know, man. I just don't know. The first time they played this season, a lot has changed, but one thing that's not changed is the speed of that Tampa defense, second level, the way they fly around. They've had to stay, you know, like that defense has had to compete all year, scratch and claw, and they haven't gotten as much credit probably as they deserve. But every ball game, I feel like they've had to keep the points down, and I feel like they can do that next week and make this a dogfight. I don't know what's going on with Jensen. I have not checked up on that. You know, worse, like this sort of stuff is going to be the difference in the game. Can they get certain guys back if they can, and they can protect Tom? I think Tampa's got a shot, man.
No question about it. I mean, Tom's going to take that field on Monday night. The whole rest of the Super Wild Card weekend is going to be over. He's going to be LFGing. The cannons are going to be firing, and the Cowboys are going to have to play to the level of their opponent. And in a one-or-done game with the whole damn season on the line. And as I said earlier in the first hour of the show, Chris, I mean, McCarthy put the players out there and said, you know, let's go. All right, you're going against a rookie in his first career start against a team that's got nothing to play for. Major Tutty got unveiled last week. Let's go turn him into bacon. Let's go. You know, and they rolled over. There's no other way to put it. And what are you going to blame McCarthy for that? He put it in his players, and I'm genuinely concerned. You know,
I'm not blaming McCarthy. I don't know if they were looking at the scoreboard too much yesterday, or they were kind of focused on what had to happen, right? You know, one of those things. But I just don't think they're that good. I mean, I think they got some really good players. You know, we're so inundated with Cowboy stuff. Sometimes you can get an easily inflated opinion of these teams that they roll out there, and I don't know at this point. I just feel like I just don't trust the Cowboys, man. And they had every opportunity to look sharp going in yesterday. And you look at it from the other sideline in Washington, you're like, damn, dude, you know, we had a real chance here.
Oh, Carson Wentz.
And we went to Wentz 2 out of the last 3 games. I don't know.
That's a good way to put it. I don't know. Chris Long here on the Rich Eisen Show. Before I let you go, the proverbial playoff team you don't want to face, it could even be the 1 seeds. It's fine. Let's go one conference and then the other. Going into the tournament, 14 teams left. The proverbial AFC playoff team you don't want to face is fill in the blank right there.
Okay, like the Bengals are the hottest and best team in the AFC. You know, the Chiefs are scary, right? All that stuff, but the Bengals, they've just been on fire. I would also put the Jags in that category too. I'm not saying they're the best team in the AFC, but although Vrabel predictably made it tough sledding the other night, like they have been hot, right? You look at the second half of the season and what they've done late, and like the way Trevor's looked. They're a tough team. They play fast. And in the NFC, for me, it's the Niners. You know, they were my preseason Super Bowl pick, and you know, I just 3 quarterbacks later, they look just as scary. And they got a really nice draw in the Seahawks, a team that they've beaten twice now. They beat them recently. They have some problems at corner. This guy Lenore has been picked on a little bit. They don't have a lot of back-end speed relative to some other teams, and they've blown coverages at different points this season. But they are a machine. You know, they are just a plug-and-play machine, and that offense scares me, man. It just does. Like their run game, all the stuff that they throw at you schematically. Yeah, they've got probably a defensive player of the year up front. They have playmakers at every level defensively. Philly and San Francisco probably going to play in the NFC Championship, and that's a tough matchup for Philly. So, you know, when you talk about teams being hot and, you know, some teams sliding in like the Jaguars, who are a really tough draw for teams thinking they're catching a lower seed, yeah, I would put those teams in that category.
All right, I lied. I got 2 more things for you. You mentioned the Chiefs, the ring around the rosy snow globe play. A lot of folks thought that was disrespectful of the Raiders. What do you think?
Man, I don't know, because I actually was, at first when I saw it, I was like, hey, that's too cute, you know, like, what are we doing? But then I started to put myself in the huddle, and I started to put myself in the defensive backfield and trying to match up, trying to figure out what personnel they're in. Obviously, you know what personnel they're in a little bit sooner, but formationally where they're going, I think that might be a real pain to deal with. So if there's any tactical advantage and it doesn't hinder your performance, then it's worth using, and it's not disrespectful. So maybe we'll see that again somewhere. Okay,
and then last one for you, Chris. I'm making you Bob Kraft. Congratulations. You have a lot more money. What do you do right now? That's now 4 straight years with no playoff wins. He, prior to the season, said it's been 3 years without one. He sounded impatient. We saw what happened with coordinators this year. I know what third rail I'm currently approaching with this question, but I place it before you. What do you have for me about the Patriots offseason? If you're Bob Kraft, what do you do, Chris?
Well, there's one guy that's not going anywhere. That's Bill. You know, so if that's the third rail, I ain't going there. But I would say he might make some demands as far as, you know, who's coaching the offense, loosening the grip a little bit on some of that stuff, because I'm not out on Mac Jones. Do I think he's an irredeemably dirty player? Yes. Do I think he's a halfway decent quarterback in the NFL? Absolutely. And I thought that yesterday, you know, there's been some spots this year where, and some people might be laughing at me as they hear this, but he'll show you something from time to time. And you can't forget that he's had a D coordinator and a special teams coach who they could have used coaching special teams yesterday, coaching him offensively. It's not only a hindrance to have, you know, 2 different voices in the room, but the 2 of them never coached offense, you know, at that level. And you just can't discount that. I know it's not a hot take at this point, but that's a real problem. So I think you got to shore that up. I think also sometimes with New England, we just get so used to we're like desensitized to their lack of weaponry, and you're just kind of like, yeah, well, Devontae Parker, Jacoby Myers, Nelson Aguilar, a couple tight ends we paid a bunch of money. That should be enough, right? I really like the running backs, and I think they got some pieces on defense. Jack Jones, he was suspended, and it's just like that's a perfect example of the type of BS they've had to deal with this year. Jack Jones gets suspended for not going to treatment. Like, I can hear Bill talking about that right now in my head and just how stupid it is. And then,
what do you mean? What do you mean by that? What do you mean by that, Chris? What do you mean?
Just like, why are we doing? Why do we have to suspend guys over stuff like that? It's just like it's such a thing we shouldn't have to think about as the Patriots, And the same thing with giving up 2 kickoff returns for touchdowns, losing the game on special teams. Same thing with fumbling the ball inside the 5-yard line with a chance to beat the Bengals. Same thing with, pitching the ball back to Mac Jones 35 yards behind us on a play that we're supposed to go into overtime. Like, just so many uncharacteristic mistakes, trends, ways that they've lost games. Bill didn't throw that lateral. Bill didn't fumble that ball against Cincinnati. Bill didn't not fit up on special teams twice. I feel like, if anything, Robert Kraft should apply pressure on Bill to hire people that are more conventional offensively, because the defense has been really good, and they've had some young pieces that are exciting, and I don't think Mac Jones is a bad quarterback. So I know that Patriots fans are so used to winning. There's a whole generation of them that never had to feel what losing's like. They don't even have to feel what mediocrity's like. They don't have to feel this feeling, not winning a playoff game in 4 years. But buckle up. This is like what it's like to be in the NFL.
Hey, brother, have a great championship game watch tonight. You like Georgia, TCU? What do you think? What do you think? Before I let you go?
What do you think? It sounds like Georgia by 3 touchdowns.
We'll see. I'll be at the game tonight.
I hope not.
I'll be there. Let's chat next week. Thanks again. Look forward to hearing your green light pod this week based on everything we just discussed. Thanks again, brother.
I appreciate it, brother. See you.
Everybody, check out Green Light Podcast with Chris Long. Kyle's on there, too. It's a fun time right here on The Rich Eisen Show. Catch The Rich Eisen Show every single day on the Roku channel, 12 to 3 Eastern, for free.